because there's actually a really interesting story just right under the surface here, which is you've been talking to these guys in Nigeria for how many years?
Years.
So 5 years, 10 years?
I've been working closely with John for 4 years,
Okay.
but I knew him before that, and I knew other people in Nigeria for another 4 years before that.
So you've got that set of relationships, that social network, which is internet mediated, right? You guys are primarily keeping in touch online. And how does that turn into you going down there to build one of these domes?
Well, through the online Skype meetings, we were able to...
So she finds you, you turn up to online, we branch down there. So you guys talk, you get invited to some meetings, they decide that they want one of these domes. You go down there and you build a dome.
No, I do a workshop where together we build a dome, yeah.
Okay, alright. So this thing is internet mediated, and I want to draw some attention to that what we're looking at here is an example of basically grassroots internet mediated knowledge transfer, right? And you go down there and you build one, and everybody looks at it and says if they like it, and then you've got a bunch of experience and a bunch of questions, and then over time this stuff gets resolved.
I think we're all very excited about the potential of using internet and participatory web. And this is an illustration, and
well, it's actually, I mean, it's one of the best practical examples I know, because I've seen pictures of this thing, right? Here's your dome, and here's the websites of the people who built it, both here and in Nigeria. And there's this sort of picture of this kind of internet-mediated international cooperation and transfer of knowledge and formation of these international social networks, and then watching solutions propagate over the network with, you know, whatever complicated adoption curve they actually have, right? And we don't know much about what that adoption curve looks like yet, but clearly there is one. So that is, I mean, really a story worth documenting. And I hope at some point you guys take some time to write that up, because it's actually very important at a process level.
Well, we'll come back to you. I think the way to document it is sort of like video documentary, the way to do it.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of video, as you can tell. You know, often what we have, particularly in the media and, you know, from a lot of these projects, is this very slick kind of corporate professional presence, which doesn't really tell you anything about what's actually going on. You know, when we started doing the global Swadeshi interviews, through this, I run a social network for appropriate technology people called Global Swadeshi, globalswadeshi.net. So the interviews were an hour and a half or 2 hours of people talking to each other over Skype or in person, going through every little detail of their projects and their philosophies and their perspectives. And everybody initially said this stuff is completely unwatchable, nobody's ever going to pay it any attention. And then what you discovered was that the people who were really motivated and really ready to act sat down and watched the videos like 3 times. Like, okay, I watched you, I understand your perspective, I'm now ready to work with you and do something with your project. And a lot of this passive consumption of media, of 30-second clips, 2-minute clips, 5-minute clips, is based around this idea that you have to please the entire television viewing audience to be successful. And what we found is you just need to make video for decision makers. You need to make video for the people who care, because they're the people who will take the time to understand what you have to say. Like, we're now at, you know, we've made almost a half-an-hour film, right? So this is fine. This is like the length of an episode of a soap opera that they would have spent $100,000 making, right? And we're going to spend a grand total of 20 minutes of human time over the length of our conversation by the time I, you know, cut off the tail, cut off the end, you know, upload it. It's a very cheap process. And, you know, the video might get 200 viewers, but those 200 people will walk away understanding that you've got a really deep communication process going with Nigeria that's talking about the internet, it's talking about culture, it's talking about the transition that their civilization is in as it contacts technology. It's talking about how we get technology transferred from, you know, Western researchers through to traditional people who can adopt it as a local technology if they want to. And all of that context, you know, takes time to acquire. You know, it's very, for the people who actually are interested in working with you, this is one of the ways that we found of getting that message across. And what I would like to see is your Nigerian team talking to cameras, or talking to each other in front of cameras like this. So maybe you can show them this as an example and say, make a film like this. Because they can put a camera on a tripod and talk to each other and upload it to the internet with exactly as easily as I can. We're not doing any complicated editing. I hate video editing. It's difficult. The software isn't free. You know, the editing is a whole different process, but stick it on a tripod and show it something fascinating is a videoing technique that can be spread globally without the transfer of complex tools, you know? Because you really need a Macintosh to edit video, and I don't think they got Macs yet, but...
Kelechi would love to be living in an eco-dome. Mr. Shingu would love to be building an
They
eco
all have really, strong plans. They really want to, and they mean it. Build one of these, which is
So
really
this
interesting.
is the first sign of technology transfer, right? They've seen it, they like it, they want
Well,
it.
the key thing about it is its pull, it's technology pull, and that's one of the secrets. I think we've got to really work hard to get from the mindset of technology push into technology pull. And I'm particularly pleased that we managed to chance on something that they were calling for, and we were able to supply it. And that's the methodology we want to work with Ecoshelter.
Yep.
And we're very pleased to be collaborating with Pamela on doing that.
And I think that that's the model that we're all hoping will come out of technology transfer to the developing world, that pretty soon you'll have truckloads of people driving to Atachab to see the ecodomes, to talk to the people who built them, to learn how to do it, and then it becomes this kind of wildfire transfer.
What we want to do is to support them as they carry on fine-tuning that technology, so we can link them into what best practice, what everyone else is doing. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right, splendid. So, any last comments?